yield my time back.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. As we had, I believe, covered in this meeting, and as we had clarified from our witnesses, this is not a law to ban racism, and it's not a law that bans racism in hiring practices. But as a recommendation, I think that one of the things that we can do to assuage those concerns, which are serious ones that imply racist hiring practices, is to shore up the Civil Rights Act and the employment provisions in the Civil Rights Act, which has been under assault for the last several years, and I would be happy to pursue a course of bipartisan action to collaborate with my colleague across the aisle to see what improvements and what additional provisions we can introduce to shore up the Civil Rights Act. And so I suggest that we could potentially explore that provision. And additionally, when it comes to the impact on folks who have not been incarcerated, I think it's actually quite positive, because one of the things that we know is that one of the number one causes to reduce recidivism and reduce the recommitment of crimes after a person leaves jail is economic opportunity and the extension of employment. And so it helps folks that haven't been incarcerated, because communities in general are less subject to crime when more folks have jobs and more folks have the opportunity to at least get their resume seen by an employer until the very end.
Would the gentlelady yield?
Lady yields.
Yes.
I want to go, this is something that you just said. We have a situation where, you're absolutely right, in a crime-infested area, when you have people either coming out of prison or people with a record, they are saddled with that record until they die. And they are locked out of opportunity over and over and over again. In many instances, they have children. So they're looking for a way to support their children. And they're also looking for a way to support themselves. And basically, they end up in a situation where there's no way out. So if they can't get a job, locked out of certain housing opportunities, locked out of career opportunities, what are they supposed to do? And all of this is doing is saying, at least give them an interview and let them, and see how you feel about them. Now, you'll get the record eventually, but the fact is, it's my understanding that what you're saying is that you just want to give them an opportunity. And then the other thing that I'm wondering about, when you talked about trying to work out something in a bipartisan way, can you elaborate on that a little bit, please?
Absolutely. So the Civil Rights Act of 1964 has specific provisions that ban discrimination in employment and hiring practices. It bans such discrimination on race-based, on any form of identity, and of course we have additional provisions in the ADA, the American Disabilities Act, to prevent discrimination as well. And so if there needs to be increased enforcement of employers who are violating and are discriminating in hiring practices, perhaps there's something that we can find there. Because when there is more enforcement on racial discrimination, there could potentially be a dissuading impact to make sure that that number isn't going up if folks are being racist in their hiring practices. But I'd also like to add on to that comment as well, Mr. Chairman. I represent Rikers Jail, rather. And Rikers Jail is on an island between the Bronx and Queens. And it is notorious for human rights abuses. In fact, so much so that the city is pursuing an action and a plan to close the jail entirely. And I think it's just extraordinarily important that we understand that folks aren't just paying their time when they go to jail, they're paying their time and then some, due to the inhumane conditions that are often found in jails and prisons across the country. So I think it's important that we understand that a lot of these folks are coming out with trauma. And additionally, you know, just a year ago, I was waitressing in a restaurant. I was wiping down tables and working in a taco shop in New York City. And one of the folks that we had hired on the line that I worked with every day, thank you, that I worked with every day was a line cook who had just come out of Rikers and throughout the entire New York City penal system. And I just think it's so incredibly important that we understand that when these folks get skills and when they get a chance, they don't go back. We are already a nation that incarcerates more people than anywhere else in the world, more than China, which means that we should be pursuing courses of action to reduce that number. Thank you very much.